Good afternoon, and welcome to today's final briefing on the upcoming Crew-1 mission. This will be the first operational flight with astronauts aboard the Crew-Dragon spacecraft and Falcon 9 rocket to the International Space Station. We are excited to be joined by the astronauts of that mission. NASA astronauts Shannon Walker, Victor Glover, Mike Hopkins, and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Soichi Noguchi. They are scheduled to launch on October 31st. Shannon Walker is the mission specialist for Crew-1. Shannon was selected as an astronaut in 2004. She launched to the International Space Station aboard a Russian Soyuz spacecraft and spent 161 days in space in 2010. Shannon is a Houston native and has a PhD in space physics. Next, we have Victor Glover. Victor is the pilot of the Crew-Dragon spacecraft and second in command for the mission. He was selected as an astronaut in 2013, and this will be his first space flight. He's a California native and holds degrees in flight test engineering, systems engineering, and military operational art and science. He is a naval aviator, a commander in the U.S. Navy, and was a test pilot in the U.S. Navy. Next, Mike Hopkins is the commander of the Crew-Dragon spacecraft and Crew-1 mission. He was selected as an astronaut in 2009 and spent 166 days aboard the space station during expeditions 37 and 38. Mike grew up on a farm outside Richland, Missouri, has degrees in aerospace engineering, and is a colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Finally, Soichi Noguchi will also be a mission specialist for Crew-1. He was selected as an astronaut candidate in 1996 and is a veteran of 2 space flights. He launched on the Space Shuttle Discovery for STS-114, returned to flight in 2005, and aboard a Soyuz spacecraft in 2009. The Crew-Dragon will be the 3rd spacecraft that Soichi has flown to the space station on. Now we'll hear brief remarks from the crew, and then we'll take questions. On the phone, please press star 1 to ask a question and star 2 to withdraw a question. You can also ask questions on social media using the hashtag AskNASA. Mike, over to you for some remarks.
Thanks, Megan. First, I just want to thank everyone that's joining us today, and I'd like to just start off with a few thoughts. First, Crew-1 is ready. We didn't become a full crew until actually late February, early March, and since that time, the crew and the entire training team has done an amazing job of getting us ready and to this point. It certainly helps when you have a short timeline like this that you add experienced crew members, and certainly Soichi and Shannon, they fall into that category. So I'm very excited to be sitting here next to Victor, Shannon, and Soichi. We've had a lot of fun in our training, and not only are they great astronauts, but they're also great people. Second, I'd like to thank our families. Training for spaceflight can be very difficult, challenging for the families, and this year has added a few extra challenges, if you will, and our families have done a great job. They've been very supportive throughout all of this, and so I think all of us are very grateful to get to share this experience with our families. Third, you heard Megan mention that our launch is now on the 31st of October, and so that is a slip of a little over a week since from the 23rd of October. The crew actually doesn't have a lot of control over the launch dates, but what we do have a control on is our readiness, and so we're going to work very closely with our training team, with our leadership team, and make sure we're maintaining our readiness as we work through these slips to the launch date. And then finally, I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you to all of the people at SpaceX, at NASA, around this country and around the world that have helped us get to this point. It is very exciting to be a part of a new era in the human spaceflight program where we're using commercial companies now to get us to the International Space Station. I think for all of us, we feel very privileged and very humbled to play a small part in that. Victor?
Yeah. And before we get started, I just wanted to briefly just also express some gratitude. I want to thank God for getting us to this point. I want to thank my family for their love and support, and for all of the NASA and SpaceX folks, and to our partners all over the globe that have gotten us to this point amidst this global pandemic. Thank you so much for all that you've done. With that, I'll hand it off to Soichi.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here as a part of this wonderful crew for this SpaceX inaugural flight for the operation to the International Space Station. And my hats off to all the NASA team and JAXA team and the SpaceX team to make this mission successful. 日本の皆さんこんにちは、JAXA の野口聡一です。この、素晴らしいミッション SpaceX の第1号に、この素晴らしいクルーと共に飛べることをとても楽しみにしています。That's it. Shannon, take it away.
Thank you, Soichi. So, again, I just want to echo my crewmates and saying thank you to all the people that have made this flight possible. As Mike said, we joined a little bit later, Soichi and I, so it's been a very intense 6 months worth of training, but we are ready, and I am very excited to get back to the space station.
Thanks, everyone. All right, let's go back to Mike. I think you have a special update for us.
That's right, Megan. So, before we get started with the questions, we did have one more announcement that we wanted to make. So, as most of you are probably aware, shortly after getting on orbit for the DM2 mission, Doug and Bob announced the name of their vehicle, Endeavour. And so we think that's a great tradition, and we're excited about the opportunity to name our vehicle. However, rather than wait until we got on orbit, we thought we would share that with you today. So without further ado, the Crew-1 Dragon capsule number 207 will henceforth be known by the call sign Resilience. So as you look at the definition of resilience, that means functioning well in times of stress or overcoming adverse events. And so I think all of us can agree that 2020 has certainly been a challenging year. Global pandemic, economic hardships, civil unrest, isolation. And despite all of that, SpaceX, NASA has kept the production line open and finished this amazing vehicle that's getting ready to go on its maiden flight to the International Space Station. And so the name Resilience is really in honor of the SpaceX and the NASA teams. And quite frankly, it's in honor of our families, of our colleagues, of our fellow citizens, of our international partners and our leaders that have all shown that same quality, that same characteristics through these difficult times. If you look at our patch, you'll notice that on the border there's no names, there's no flags, and that was by design because that patch, it doesn't just represent the four of us, but it really represents the countless people that have contributed to getting the vehicle ready and getting us ready for this mission. And so that same theme applies to the name of this vehicle, Resilience. It is not just a connection for the four of us, but we really feel like it is a connection to all of you, to everybody. We hope that it brings a smile to your face. We hope that it provides something positive in your lives, and quite frankly, we hope that it's an inspiration that it shows when you work together. There's no limit to what you can achieve. So, with that, the name Resilience, we're all very excited about, but we're ready for questions.
Good words, Commander.
Yeah.
All right.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now we'll get on to some questions. Let's start with Marcia Dunn with Associated Press.
Yes, hi. I suppose this question's for one of the two pilots. Do you consider, I know this is the first operational mission, but do you also see it as sort of a truncated test flight, if you will, since you're only the second flight? And by operational, do you think that implies that this is becoming routine, Dragon's flying crews? And talk a little bit about some of the safety upgrades made from the first mission, et cetera. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you bet. I'll start off and I'll let Ike chime in as well. But, with spaceflight, unfortunately, there's usually nothing routine about it. You do sometimes get into a rhythm with it, but it's always a very dangerous business. And so, you always have to take that very seriously. Certainly, the DM2 mission was the official demonstration test flight of this vehicle. However, we are going to see a lot of firsts when we get up there and fly. It's the first time we're taking 4 crew on board, and so that puts more challenges on the environmental control systems and things of that nature. It's going to stay up there for 6 months versus 2 months, and so we're still going to be learning about things regarding time and space and the impacts of that environment. And so we recognize that it is a certified vehicle, but we also recognize that there's going to be some new features, and I'll let Ike talk about some of those new capabilities that we will potentially be demonstrating while we're on board.
Absolutely. So our vehicle has new hardware. For example, we are a little more robust to the loads at splashdown. We also have new software that enables us to undock from one docking port, say the forward docking port, and then reposition to the zenith, the one that's on top. We also have forward crew, as Mike mentioned earlier. All of those things are features that we will be exercising for the first time. But also, the way the administrator put it when he was asked that Bob and Doug's mission was the developmental test mission, our mission is like an operational test mission. So as soon as we hit day 64, that's going to be the first time a Crew Dragon at the space station has reached that milestone, and then every day after that will be new territory.
Question, let's go to Lauren Grush with The Verge.
Hi, thank you so much. My question is for the American astronauts. You're currently slated to fly right before a very big election, and your fellow astronaut Kate Rubin says she plans to vote from space. I'm curious if you'll be doing the same or if you will be early voting, just in case.
All of us are planning on voting from space. NASA works very well with the different election organizations because we're all voting from different counties, but it was easiest for us just to say we were going to vote for space, so that's what we're going to do.
All right, let's go to Michael Sheets with CNBC.
Hi, all. You all come from very, very different backgrounds, both in terms of your experiences with space flight. Some, Victor is your first, Noguchi is your third. I'm curious, as you guys have gotten to gel as a team, what is that experience like, getting to know one another in the last few months, as well as wrapping up your training together?
I'll start off with that, and then maybe I'll let the guy that's getting ready for his third space flight add to it. But that has been what's made this crew, I think, so special. You look at Victor, and yeah, this is his first flight, but he brings a wealth of experience, operational experience with the Navy to the table. And so, it doesn't matter that he's as a rookie from spaceflight perspective. He just contributes all the time, and I really rely on his advice. Shannon has flown before. She's been around NASA for quite a while here at Johnson Space Center.
Very long time.
And it's the same kind of thing, right? That bringing that experience to the table. Both she and Soichi have trained as a left seat flyer on the Soyuz, and so even though in this particular capsule they don't have access to all of the controls, all the displays like Victor and I do, we still take advantage of their experience, of their advice. Sometimes they're sitting there and they see things that Victor and I may not see because we're busy on the displays, and so the opportunity to take advantage of that experience has really been helpful. And then, the last thing I would say is that one of the advantages I think of this pandemic and how we've been training is when we go out to SpaceX, for example, and train out there, we have been together for 24 hours a day, and that gives you they're laughing, but that gives you an opportunity to get to know each other outside of the workplace too. And so we've shared a lot of nights sitting around the dinner table and talking about things other than spaceflight, and that's been very helpful as well.
Yeah.
Soichi, I don't know if you want to add anything in terms of your third space flight.
Yeah, actually, for this training flow, both Hopper and Ike started like 2 years ago. So they know the SpaceX system inside out. And Shannon and I joined like last February and March, so it's relatively short. But the important thing is all of us kind of contribute to this wonderful team. Everybody brings something to the table. And Shannon and I have a luxury of flying in Soyuz and Hopper as well, and also cherished Ike's test pilot background. We really expect his input. So all of us, this diversity definitely brings the team's resilience as well. Mm-hmm. So this is the one for all for one. That's come from Shannon, but definitely the four of us contribute to the wonderful team of this Crew-1.
And if I could add one little short thing, we have, I think, captured the best of the training from the Soyuz training flow and the shuttle flow, where you had a bigger crew, and to really see the best of both worlds, I think, is made it special. And we have a ton of fun training together.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to Bill Harwood with CBS News.
Hey, thank you. This is for Shannon. Would you, we've heard this in earlier briefings, but from the crew, talk about the value of having at least 4 USOS crew members on board the ISS at the same time in terms of increasing scientific productivity. How big of a milestone is that to the research community? And then a second really quick question, can someone explain Ike's nickname? Thanks.
Well, we'll let Ike explain his nickname. But in terms of having more people on the station, so by the time we get up there, Kate will already be there. So we'll have 5 people on the USOS side, as we call our half of the space station. And so it is huge. The amount of research that we can get done and the science that we can get done with just 1 or 2 more people is more than just 1 or 2 more people's worth of science. And you also have the luxury of a regular-sized crew, say a crew of 3, which may only be 2 USOS or 3 USOS people, still work on science while you're doing other things with the space station, be it maintenance or other items that need to be taken care of. And so the ability for us to accomplish whatever needs to be accomplished goes way high with more people on the station.
Okay, so it's an acronym. It stands for I Know Everything. And the short story is, it is a reminder to never pass up an opportunity to keep my mouth shut. And I'll start now.
And he knows everything, by the way.
Yeah.
Very nice. All right, let's go on to David Curley with Discovery Channel.
Thanks for taking the call, everybody. To Mike and Victor, Ike, go Mustangs. Can you talk to us a little bit about the issue with the heat shield and the tiles, and are you comfortable with the fix that everyone else seems to be comfortable with? Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. So actually, all 4 of us have been following very closely the issues with the heat shield that were discovered during the DM2 mission. And again, we've hit on this earlier, but I would say this is another example of why the experience that we bring to this crew, and not Ike and I in this particular case, but Soichi was on the return to flight shuttle mission after Columbia. Shannon's husband was on that mission as well, and so they have brought a lot to the table, having lived through that after Columbia. So I would say yes, we are following it very closely, but I would also say there is an amazing team that has been brought together to work this issue, and we are confident in this team and their ability to find the right solutions.
Yeah.
Thanks. Let's go to Marina Corin with The Atlantic.
So there's a sense of ceremony around breakfast on launch day and a public interest in that tradition that goes back to the Apollo days. Have you thought yet about what you'd like to eat for breakfast that day, which I guess now is actually going to be more of a midnight snack?
A lot.
I'm not sure that's a good idea. Actually, we had one of our first meetings today just on what that schedule was going to look like, and so a lot of those little details in terms of what we're going to eat and when we're going to have that meal, we're still working through those, but I have no doubt that we're going to be well fed. The team down at KSC, in fact, actually the team here at Johnson Space Center, because we'll go into a quarantine period before we even leave for the Cape, and so the meals that we'll have here and the meals that we'll have down there, I know are going to be absolutely fantastic.
One thing I can quickly add is Ike earlier mentioned we are taking the good piece from the shuttle side and the Russian Soyuz side. We're picking the good tradition. The breakfast is one thing. We're starting to talk about the last final 2 weeks on the ground, and we're starting to pick some of the good tradition we like from the Soyuz side, and we're trying to keep the other good side from the shuttle side, so we can enjoy the best side of those 2 worlds, and we can start a new tradition.
Awesome. Okay, let's go to Miriam Kramer with Axios.
Hi, thanks so much. So my question is for the 3 American astronauts. So y'all are flying to space at a somewhat fraught time with the ongoing pandemic and protests around the country, like you mentioned, Mike. And I'm curious what you all see as your role as astronauts within that broader context. Thanks very much.
I'll start. I mean, I think what we can show or demonstrate, actually, all 4 of us, is just the unity and the fact that it doesn't matter what background you come from, but when you all work together, again, as I mentioned, not only in the name of resilience, but when you all come together, you can do some amazing things. And so I do find it interesting. You know, we've all started at different places across this country. We've all had slightly different paths that have taken us here, but when you really look at them, there's a lot of similarities there as well. So I think we do bring a lot to the table, and the 4 of us actually together is a much stronger product in the end.
All right, let's go to Selin Barber with Gannett Publications.
Mike, this is a question for you. How excited are you to have this honor of not only returning to space, but being the commander of this historic mission, launching from revered Launch Pad 39A, and then also follow up, how has your training, changed from your previous mission? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. As a commander, as you can imagine, it's quite an honor. As a flight test engineer, as a backseater, if you will, in the aviation world, I don't have that opportunity to command. I think that these new vehicles moving forward, they show the opportunities that are out there for other folks that don't necessarily have the same background as, say, Victor in this particular case. So it is an honor, and I'm humbled by it. But I will also tell you that there is a lot of value in the experience, for example, that Victor brings to the table with all of his operational hours in the F-18 with the Navy. And so I certainly don't want to underplay that. And I also want to say that I have taken advantage of that. And I mentioned it earlier as well. Both Shannon and Soichi have trained as a left seater in the Soyuz, which means they were second in command. They would have been called on to take command, and so it's kind of funny. I'm sitting here as the commander, but in reality, I probably have the least experience of any of these 3 in terms of being a commander. And so I've relied very heavily on them throughout this training flow, and I'm going to continue to rely on them as we go uphill and get on board the International Space Station. So I think I forgot what the second part of the question was, but
differences.
The differences. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Thank you, Victor. I see what I mean. So the differences. Clearly, there has been a lot of big differences between training over in Russia. Some of them are logistics associated. When you go over and train in Russia, you're going for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks at a time before you get to come home. Whereas here, we go out to SpaceX, we spend a week in Hawthorne, and then we get to come home and be with our families on the weekends. And so I can't say enough about how that piece is. It's nice. It's nice to be able to see your family, your loved ones on the weekends. And so hats go off to our colleagues and our crewmates that are continuing to go through the Russian training flow, because it does present a few more challenges associated with it. The other thing I would say that's a little bit different is this is new. The Soyuz is a well-proven program, and the training program is the same. The crews have been going through that, and I would say one of the things that I remember, one of my our fellow astronauts, Joe Akaba, before my last flight on the Soyuz, as I was getting ready to go over for the final qual exams and all of that, I didn't feel like I was ready. And I mentioned this to Joe, and he said, "Mike, trust the system. By the time you're ready to launch, you're going to be ready." We didn't have that necessarily this time, right? We didn't have the people before you that have gone through it that could tell you or reassure you that by the time you get to getting ready to launch to this press conference, that you're going to be ready. And so we had to figure that out a little bit on our own, and I'm thankful and very happy to say that we have. I feel like we have figured that out, and this crew is ready.
All right, now let's take a couple of questions coming in on social media. Let's start with the SpaceX Reddit group for Soichi. This will be the third different spacecraft you are flying on. What are the biggest differences in training for you?
Yes, I'm fortunate enough to experience 3 different spacecraft training. This one, obviously, most of the training for the Crew Dragon side is done by SpaceX itself. And their approach is slightly different, but I would say it is really effective. And as I told you earlier, we have, Shannon and I have like a very condensed flow, about 6 months from the scratch to the launch pad. And actually worked out great. And again, this is our 4 of us joined together to come up with the right way of operating a spacecraft. So it's not just SpaceX. SpaceX is great, but we also, as a team, come up with the right approach. And I'm pretty sure that, like my commander said, we are ready to fly.
All right. From Jackie on Facebook, what would you say to an aspiring astronaut?
You want to take it?
You know, I think the 3 things I generally say when I get the privilege to go talk to young folks is to be gritty, Gritty. It means to persevere and to not be afraid to work hard, to be a lifelong learner inside and outside the classroom, and to work very hard at being a good teammate. And that last one is very tough because at the end of the day, it's not up to you. It's up to the people to your left and to your right. So to be gritty, to be a lifelong learner, and to be a good teammate.
All right. From Elaine Berger on Twitter, how comfortable do you all feel in the mock-ups of the capsule being 4 people inside?
I'll take that.
Yeah, you got it.
I think it's very comfortable compared to the Soyuz, which has 3. It's a much tighter space where you're actually sitting. The Soyuz does have another compartment where it has stowage. In the Crew Dragon, it's just one compartment, so your stowage and your people are all together. But it makes it feel a little more space-ish. Space-ish. That's hard to say. But it's nice. It's comfortable.
All right, let's go back to the phone bridge for some more media questions. Robert Perlman with Collect Space.
Hi, thank you. For all 4 of you, what does the milestone of reaching 20 years of continuous human occupancy on the ISS mean to you each personally? And what does it say about the overall state of human space exploration when you consider that over the last 2 decades and 240 people, there have been less than 24 women, less than 20 people who were from countries other than the U.S. and Russia, and only now, with Victor, you're becoming the first African-American astronaut to become a space station expedition crew member?
Well, I'll start. The ability to fly in space, period, is a privilege. And so to be able to fly on this amazing vehicle that was made in California like I was, that is a privilege. It is icing on the cake. To be able to live on the space station for 6 months and during that time to be there for the 20th anniversary of human presence on that station, and to potentially launch on the 20th anniversary of the launch of Expedition 1 is just special and relates to something Mike said earlier, that the power of teamwork, when we come together to work on the same thing, that there's no limit to what we can accomplish. It is truly a privilege.
All right, now let's go to Chelsea Gold with Space.com.
Good afternoon. So kind of on a similar note, this is a question for Victor. As Robert mentioned, you will be the first Black astronaut to ever be part of a crew for a long-duration mission on the space station. This seems like a long time coming, and I'm curious, as also a first-time astronaut, how you feel about embarking on your first mission while also making this history.
Well, I actually try very hard not to think a lot about it. I want to go up there and I want to do my job very well. And I want to come back and talk to you about that after I get back home to my family safely. So I would say let us accomplish that first, and then we have something to celebrate. It's bittersweet, and I can't tell you why it's taken us this long. But again, I hope to go up there and do my job to the best of my ability. And I would love to come back and tell you stories afterward.
All right, let's go to Joey Roulette with Reuters.
Hey, I was wondering what the process of casting a ballot from space is like. Do you guys send some kind of digital ballot down to Houston? And also, would love to hear any kind of good tips that you guys could share from Bob and Doug that they may have passed along from their mission. Thanks so much.
Well, I can talk about casting a ballot from space since I did it last time I was on the space station. They basically send you an electronic file. It's a PDF, and you mark your choices, and then you email it back to the, I forget the title of the person, but the person who's in charge of the election for the county. And so then that gets counted into all the ballots that are brought back. It's very simple, very straightforward.
And then I'll jump in terms of from Bob and Doug. We were very fortunate after they got on orbit, probably about a week after, I think, we had a chance to have a conference with them. And then once they returned to Earth, the same thing. We had an opportunity to speak with them. And one of the great things about that is you get to hear sometimes the little details that don't show up in a training program or a training lesson. And some of those things are simple. Some of those may not seem like a lot, but they can be very important. For example, they talked a lot about some of the sounds that occurred during the fueling process. You know, this is something that we haven't done in the past, and so having astronauts in the capsule on the rocket as you're fueling it up is a little bit different. And so listening to them describe some of those sounds is very helpful, because then when we hear them during that process, you're expecting it, and it's not as big of a surprise, and you're not sitting there looking at each other, were we supposed to hear that? The other thing is not just the sounds, but the feelings, and so they talked a little bit about that. And when I say feelings, I mean what the vehicle is doing. You're feeling the vehicle as it's coming in the atmosphere, for example, and they described a little bit about that. And again, it helps set those expectations and helps you prepare for those events.
All right, let's go to Paul Rivera with West 2 News, NBC.
Hey there, thanks for taking my call, my questions. This is to everyone. When it comes to the diversity of the crew, and this sort of pegs off of an earlier question, how important is this diversity of the crew to future space explorers that look to you and say, this person is in these shoes doing this, I might be able to do this moving forward because they took that step?
Yeah, I think your question actually is a great answer as well. I think that is one of the nice things about this crew is people out there can take a look at it and find something similar, familiar to them, and we hope that can be an inspiration to them. But I mentioned this a little bit earlier, and I'll mention it again. When you really look at our backgrounds, there's a lot of similarities there, and so focusing on those similarities, I think, is pretty important as well, but also celebrating our differences and hoping that can inspire folks from all across the country and the world, I think is a great thing.
All right, let's go to Gina Sunseri with ABC News.
Shannon, you've got considerable experience already on the space station. What are you bringing forward from your last segment to your last expedition to this that will make this expedition different for you?
That's a good question. I haven't thought too much about that. I think one of the things that I will bring is my experience, which doesn't sound like a very concrete answer, but my experience of having already lived and worked there will give me a huge head start and make me much more efficient this time around than I was last time I flew. So knowing how the station is laid out, knowing how it's packed, knowing how the ground works with the crew on the station, how it all fits together will make me just a better crew member overall.
Okay, let's go to Dave Mosher with Business Insider.
Hi, all. I kind of want to spring off an earlier question, and this is for anyone who's most excited to answer it. What is the most interesting comment or tip that Bob or Doug told you about riding the Dragon? And I mean that in terms of preparing you for the mission. I think, Mike, you mentioned the sounds, but maybe there's something else that they said that has really stuck with you, and you can share with us what that is. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got one that I'll share, and if somebody else has one as well, I hope they have an opportunity to share that too. But I would say I remember talking to Doug about entry, and his comment about entry was that it happens fast. From the time the deorbit sequence starts, the entry sequence starts to when you touch down is very fast. And so his comment was, even though it's happening fast, he said he felt like he was ahead of the vehicle. And so for people in the aviation world or flying world like this, that has a certain meaning to it, and that for me, that means I need to make sure that we as a crew are ready for that moment, because again, when things happen fast, you need to be anticipating and be ready to go. And so that really stood out to me.
Yeah, and another thing that they mentioned was that after their manual piloting demo, that the vehicle flew like the sim, and that is comforting, and it is also a testament to SpaceX and the product that they've created.
Okay, let's go to Meredith Garofalo with Weather Nation.
Thank you guys all so much. I really appreciate your time. Now, we've had decades of different accomplishments of space exploration, and why is this one important to you and for our future generations? What do you hope they always remember from this launch and from this mission?
Wow, that's a tough one.
So I would hope that coming out of this is, I mentioned it earlier as well, that it's kind of the start of a new era in human spaceflight. I think in terms of using the commercial companies to give us access to the International Space Station, I think there's another piece that's happening, and that is opening up low Earth orbit to more people, to potentially not just NASA astronauts and JAXA astronauts and cosmonauts, but to civilians that are out there. And so I think if this is the start of that, I think that's a great thing, and I hope they can take that from it.
All right, let's go to Stephen Clark with Spaceflight Now.
Hi, thank you. I was wondering which of you are training, or which of you would be expected to go outside for an EVA, at least which of you received EVA training. And I understand your EVA training is complete, your Dragon training at SpaceX is complete, so what are your schedules like over the next month leading up to launch? Do you have additional sims, or are you going to take that extra week to do some more training? And what else are you doing to prepare for the mission? Thank you.
I'll start with the EVA piece. So in terms of training for EVA, actually all four of us are trained for EVA. In terms of going out the door, Victor, myself, and Soichi will go out the door.
And Kate.
Kate, thank you. But then Shannon has, I would actually say, probably the more difficult role, and that's getting us out the door. That is a very compressed timeline. There's a lot going on, a lot of different procedures that have to be tracked, and it's critical. And so all four of us, in terms of including Kate, are prepared to go out the door, and Shannon is just as important part of that role in terms of making the EVAs happen. In terms of what we're going to be doing, I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in on that one.
We do a little bit of refresher training. The bulk of our training is complete, but there will probably be a sim or two in there to make sure that our skills are tip-top when we're ready to go. But we do also get the opportunity to take some time off, and so we'll have about a week where we can spend time with our families and wrap things up at home before we go away. That's going our time on orbits, across a major holiday season. We'll be home after tax season. There may be things that we need to take care of before we go. Yeah, taxes. You got to do your taxes. And then we'll be right into quarantine, getting ready to go.
All right, let's go to Frida Juarez with El Universal.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking my question. I was wondering, this one is for everybody. How does the pandemic change your perspective from space and your perspective about being an astronaut?
Well, can I say that I was joking in describing this time with my family that, they get to experience a little bit what it's going to be like to live on the space station with the increase in isolation and having to find new ways to communicate virtually, doing their schoolwork. Our kids are doing schoolwork online. And so I think that's one, like maybe a positive spin you could put on this is the entire planet is in one way or another experiencing, the austerity that comes with living on the International Space Station. But I will also say that the perspective piece for me, it has given me a greater sense of respect for the people that have had to go out and continue to keep our communities clean, the folks that are picking up the trash and making sure that our facilities are clean, and the folks that have to continue to come in and help us to train and be ready for this mission, and that created and built this vehicle, or are still building this vehicle. And so I thought I was already grateful, but I am increasingly grateful for all of their hard work.
All right, Irene Klotz with Aviation Week.
Thanks. This is for Mike or Victor or Shannon. NASA has gone through this route of trying to open up LEO previously, and shortly after shuttle started flying was flying politicians and school teacher and so forth, and we know how that worked out. What do you think, can you give me a couple of examples specifically about how the risk assessment has changed from shuttle era to what you all are working now with SpaceX and Boeing in the commercial crew program?
I think, first of all, it starts just with the design of the vehicle and what they each were made for. When you look at the space shuttle, it was made for kind of a different purpose in terms of it was made to help build the space station, for example. And so based on that, how it was built and all of that put different risks, I would say, with flying on the space shuttle versus with these vehicles. What you see with SpaceX, what you see being developed for Boeing, they have a much smaller mission set, if you will. They are being made to take people to low Earth orbit, to the International Space Station, and bring them back. And so they're not being asked to do the same types of things that the space shuttle was asked to do. And so because of that, I think you'll find that the risk is a little bit different. And I would also say that we've got the advantage of 40 years, 50 years since the designs of the space shuttle. And so obviously we've learned a lot from the space shuttle experience, and we've applied those to these vehicles. And you can see it. Earlier we got asked about the TPS issue. All of that experience from the shuttle is being applied right now to this vehicle, and we're taking advantage of that. And so that's not only making it safer for us, but as we look at potentially other folks being able to fly on these vehicles, it's making it safer for them as well.
And having the 20 years of human presence in low Earth orbit has given us the time to work out the operations, the technology, and the teamwork, really, the partnership, the 15 to 18 nations that make it possible for us to have this International Space Station. So that's also grown our abilities to work and live in space.
All right, let's go to Mary Lou Bender with Cosmic Perspective.
Hi, thank you. This is Mary Liz. So lately I've been talking to retired astronaut Nicole Stott about a subject near and dear to her. She says that she's always so grateful that someone insisted that she take her humanity with her on her human spaceflight. And for her, that meant painting in space, and I'm curious what this might mean for you all. Have you decided to bring something special in your personal effects, or have you thought about how you'll spend your personal time?
Good question.
Yes.
For me, yes, yes, we know and love Nicole. Unfortunately, I don't have the same talents as she has when it comes to art, so that is not something I will probably be doing very much of in space. I think a lot of my time will be similar to what it was before when I had free time, looking out the window and enjoying the perspectives of space, and then thinking of ways that we can communicate that to the rest of the world, because communicating what we're doing and our experiences up there is hugely important.
All right, let's go to Frida Juarez with El Universal again.
Yeah, I also wanted to ask, sorry, I don't know. Sorry. So, could you explain me how different it was working? You all, except from Victor, have experience working at NASA, no? But how does the collaboration with the SpaceX made it different?
So I think you're asking how the experience has been working with SpaceX, different from maybe working at NASA?
Yeah.
Yeah, that team is really amazing, and I can't give them enough kudos. it has made me appreciate how hard they work and how talented their workforce really is. Every time we go there, I learn a ton. But I also have fun. We'll get back to our house in the evening and just be mentally exhausted, maybe physically exhausted, and then we'll sit around at dinner talking about how much we learned, but we'll all have smiles on our faces. And I think the NASA culture has been improved by working with SpaceX, and I think SpaceX's culture has been improved by working with NASA. They appreciate different things about us, having all of that experience Mike and Shannon talked about earlier, and we appreciate their talent and their operations tempo. They move pretty fast, and so they do things that seem to us to be pretty amazing, but they do that with a lot of talent and professionalism.
And I would add to that in some ways it's very interesting and similar to our international partnership when we first started. Our international partners all came with their own experiences and approaches and ways of doing business, and we've all come together sort of in the center of having one very functional group working together. And so now we're bringing SpaceX into the team, and we're learning from SpaceX, and SpaceX is learning from the partnership. So it's a very interesting process.
All right, let's go back to Seelan Barber with Gannett Publications.
Great. Thank you so much, Megan. I haven't heard as much about the scientific experiments that you might be maintaining or conducting while upon the ISS. Would any of you like to share what science experiments you're going to be working on?
Well, so I think a part of that is with the flexibility we've had to maintain for launch dates. It means that the experiments that are going to be up there while we're there could vary, and so we've had to train on a variety of them. And one that I'm really looking forward to is food physiology, because I love to eat, and it's going to allow me to eat more fruits and vegetables as they try to increase the amount of omega fatty acids and lycopene and flavonoids to see how it affects your gut health and your immune system and your overall nutrition. So I'm looking forward to food physiology.
All right, anyone else on science experiments?
I can maybe add some. Obviously, we have a variety of science experiments which didn't exist 10 years ago when Shannon and I flew. So right now we have a lot of new teams like biotechnology and gene technology, and also we are doing a lot of microsat deployment. We're using our Kibo airlock, which did not exist 10 years ago. So we have a lot of new ways to explore the science these days.
All right, thanks. Great question. Just a reminder, if you have a question on the phone, you can press *1 to ask your question or *2 to withdraw your question. All right, let's take a couple of more questions from social media. Margaret on Facebook wants to know about your patch. What are the symbols in the patch? What does it stand for?
So the symbols on the bottom of the patch on that border that are kind of the shadow symbols, they represent the previous U.S. launch vehicles, and so that's the Mercury, the Gemini, the Apollo, and then you'll see the shuttle symbol there. And of course, that's then flowing into the Crew Dragon. And if you look above the head of the Dragon in the background, you'll see the outline of the International Space Station, which is our destination right now.
All right, another question from the SpaceX Reddit group on Twitter. Can astronauts customize their suit and helmet colors? Soichi Noguchi had a cool black helmet in training.
Well, the short answer is we wish, but not actually. That's not one of the. Yeah, I actually like those black helmets. I put it on my Twitter, but that's not the official flight helmet. The SpaceX has a nice design scheme, and it's really actually nice white helmet. And I don't think we have luxury of changing the spacesuit in any actually shuttle, Soyuz, and but the spacesuit actually looks really fantastic.
All right, let's go to Jeff on Facebook. Are there any fun Easter eggs on Crew Dragon that you know of, or fun features people might not know about?
We would love to know if there's some fun Easter eggs out there. I don't know. I'm not aware of any. Do you know any?
I might be aware of some, but I'm not going to share them right now.
Oh man, you're holding out on us.
I am.
All right. And for our final question for today, let's go to Mary on Twitter. What do you, as astronauts, consider a personal goal during the Crew-1 mission? Maybe each of you can give a brief answer here.
So, as a personal goal, I think this one is probably fairly obvious, but for all of us, it's to land safely and return to our families, and that's kind of first and foremost. I think one of my other goals is I'm very excited to fly with Victor on his first flight, and part of that goal then is looking forward to seeing what he does on his next flight.
I've listened to the advice of my colleagues and good friends, and I'm going to make a point to try and capture the moments, take a lot of pictures of the things that we do inside, not just our beautiful planet, but also of my crewmates as well, to try and really capture that experience, but also just to experience it itself.
Victor's goal is very similar to my goal. We've worked very hard to get to this position. We know we've got a lot of hard work ahead of us on the space station, so we want to accomplish our work, but still have a lot of fun doing it. So if we can come back as a happy crew, like we're going into space as, that's going to be a good thing.
That's a good goal.
All right.
I would say every day is a new day in space. Enjoy every moment. Return home with smile.
That's great. Thank you all so much for joining us today and for taking questions. We are so excited to see you launch on October 31st. You can watch these guys launch on NASA TV, online at nasa.gov/live, or on Facebook Live on the NASA Facebook page. You can also join Mike, Victor, and Shannon tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time on Instagram Live on the NASA Instagram page. And you can follow updates on social media by following NASA, the Space Station Commercial Crew, and also Victor, Mike, and Soichi on Twitter. Good luck, guys, and thank you everyone for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.